Hello everyone, my name is Dylan Hamilton. Welcome to my series of videos where I will be going through and explaining multiple different aspects about Escape Simulator's level editor, such as basics on how to set up a room, going through these many different themes and assets that you can use, and how to import assets into your own level if you want to use unique assets as compared to the stuff that you're offered in, which is surprisingly very limited in comparison to like the base game. I will go through that in a different video. The primary things that we're going to be focusing on through these videos will be these logic functions. I will be going through and having videos on each individual one or a series of ones if they're grouped closely together. But today's focus would be primarily on this lock function right here. Now, as the name suggests, obviously it's going to act as a lock. And if we look into these properties menu, we're going to see multiple different things underneath its individual window, such as the type, which is something that we're not going to be getting into, as it's not really or something that you're going to come across very often or change. There's the passwords, which is what we're going to focus on, and we're going to have other things such as the extras and the input and output, or the output values. So, if we go over and look into the the lock tab, we're going to see a bunch of locks already set up, and there are also some other ones that I will be describing as well. But we click and drag out this 3-cylinder one, we're going to see it's mostly set up with each individual cylinder as well as the base. And we'll also see that it has its own lock function. Now, we drag this over here, we could see that there are 3 individual blue strips that are all connected to these individual cylinders. And what they're each connected to is they're all connected to each one of these blocks of the password. So if we go through the cylinder, we see that it is set to a turnable, and the locks is correlated with one of these individual slots in the lock. So this one would be 0, which in this case, 0, or lock 0 would be this first square, and it goes by 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So whenever you see that, that's what that means. As we see, there's 1 and there's 2. Now this one, what we could do is we could set the numbers right here. So if we go through and if we play, and if we set each one to 1, 1, 1, it's going to automatically kick us out, which isn't going to be very helpful if we don't have anything set up to like have it unlock something. So let's do that real quick. Let's set something up to where we know if a lock is working or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into shapes, I'm going to drag in a cube, and I'm going to set it to just a basic animation. Now you can set this with most things, and this is going to be the common thing that most people do when unlocking something, is they're going to have it the unlock feature set up to an animation. So what we do is we edit the waypoint, drag this down, just to have a simple understanding that our lock is working. Confirm. Now, how we set this up is very simple. So if we go back into the lock, and on the unlock function right here, if we click that, it's going to bring us into this kind of like screen right here where it's going to show us all the possibilities of stuff that we can hook it up to. It's most likely going to be hooked up to stuff that's like animated, or as we can see, like other locks right here. So for this instance, let's say we want other locks to be solved in order to unlock one bigger lock. Then that's how we can hook this up. And I will be going into that in a bit. However, anything that's animated, as previously mentioned, will be something that you can mess with, or something that you can hook up to the lock. So let's click on this. It'll have this little pin icon right here. Click that and click confirm. Now, before we go and test that, I also want to go through and kind of change. I want to create my own password. So let's say I want it to be 369. All I would simply have to do is just go through this password and just change the number. So 3, 6, 6, and 9. And simultaneously, I can also add in more as much as I want and have multiple different combinations. But all we just need is the 3, since there's only, well, 3 cylinders. So we go through 3, 6, 9. And we see that it's activated the animation. So that means our lock works, which is good. Now, locks don't simply just have to be correlated with cylinders. They can also be correlated with other stuff such as slots and buttons and all that. So I will be going into the slot logic in a different video and talking about all the different possibilities of that. But I will give a brief rundown of what this is in this video. So slots, basically what they are is stuff that you can like put into there and it'll activate like a node basically and send off like a signal that you can connect to locks or other animations as well. So with this one, all we would have to do is create like a little, like give it an object to interact with basically. So with this one, we're going to, let's do a tool. Put like a little hammer. And let's make sure that this hammer can be a pick-upable in the physics. That way we can actually pick it up and use it to interact with the slot. Do that. And there we'll have keys and reject keys. Just simply right there. Not getting too much into it. And once this is placed, we can then have it to where it will give off a signal on place. When we do that, we can hook it up to this number right here on the lock. Now, for this one, I like to have, if I'm ever doing this kind of puzzle, I like to have it to where it's set up as 1. So, let's say we'll have 3 different slots that need to activate this. So we'll do Control D on the keyboard to copy and create like a clone of this one. And make sure that whenever you do that, that you're going to want to get rid of the original one, because otherwise it's going to connect to the same node or the same password node. So we do that. Control D to create another one, and make sure to hook these up to the password nodes. As we can see now, that once we're going into this screen to choose something, it'll then show up multiple different numbers to correlate with. So similar to this one, how we have the 369, each one is connected. So each one of these will be connected to this lock, and it'll activate a different node in a sequence. So let's do this on unlock. We'll activate the same animation. And in order to do that, we also need multiple hammers to do so. So this hammer, do keys, there we go. And set up multiple keys. Now, what we could do, I probably should have given an indication as to where these nodes are. That way I'm not just like scanning, but we basically have a general idea. Or at least I thought so. Oh. Alright. Yeah. Let me put these all together. That way I'm not just doing that. My mistake. Here we go. One, two, and if we put the third one, oh, we don't have that one connected to all of them, so there we go. Now, 1, 2, 3. There we go. It all works. And this can work, let's say, if you want a puzzle to have multiple different slots. So like if we go through and first off, let me give like a little indication. That way I'm not just scanning the floor. We'll have this little thing right here. Just to give an indication. So let's say we want a puzzle to have multiple different slots. But yet only 3 of them will actually give the, or 3 of them are the actual ones that you want to use to unlock a certain lock or set off an animation. Let me select all of these just for visual purposes. By the way, to select multiple objects, it's control. Hold down control while clicking. Bring these all up. And it's not perfect, but it doesn't need to be. So let's say we want multiple different slots, and just these 3 would be enough to set off the puzzle. All we just have to do is simply do what we just did. However, we would only be hooking up these 3 with the actual lock function and leaving all these ones alone. Like, we won't be setting them up or anything. No on remove, on place, or anything. So that's how we would set that up. Now there is one thing I want to go back to, which is similar to these cylinders right here. There is one thing that I did run into an issue while I was working with the level editor and doing one of the levels I was working on that I described in the level update for Brothers in Time. Whereas I was trying to set up a lock function on the wall that used these red turnables right here. And the process was very confusing to work with because I didn't know how it functioned. It's not like how this lock is, where all of them were already set to be faced forward and all that. It was a bit confusing to work with. And it took me a while, but eventually I figured it out. And it is a bit hard to explain, so bear with me. I will try my best. But simply, if we want to, let's say we want to set up all these turnables that aren't already previously set up, like how these locks are, what we would do is we'd go through, place all the turnables, and place this lock right here. Now, I'm going to change these later, but I want to set them up for now. Now, for each turnable, for visual purposes, let's bring them all the way right here. Just to 1. We have to make sure each one is set up to this turnable function right here in the behaviors tab, which would be right underneath textures. So, do to turnable, each one. Though, one thing that would be easier is to set up just 1 right here. So, we set this to turnable. Make sure that the world axis is right and the screen axis is left. Because essentially what that is doing is making sure that we can spin it around to the world axis. So what the what this left function would be doing in the screen axis is basically allowing us to go. So like if I click and hold and drag my mouse to the left, it'll move, or to the right, it'll move to the right. Drag it left, it would move to the left. Whereas if we set it to right, it would be inversed. So this is me dragging to the right and it's spinning left, and I'm dragging to the left and it's spinning right. So that's why we want these to be to the left and right. If we want this to be how this is, obviously we would change these accordingly if we want like this rotation to be sideways or all that. But anyways, we set these, and we want to make sure that these steps are set to 9 in this case, since there are 9 different spots. This is basically the number of turns that you want to give it. So it goes depending on the slots. So, or the number of faces, not slots. So since they're 9, we set it to 9. If there were 4, as it previously was, this is how it would be. Let's say I want it to go to 2. It's not going to. It's going to go to one of the other ones. So it's going to go to every 4. And we don't want that. So let's go to 9. So with that set up, what we're going to do is we're going to Control D. And if you do that, all of these will have the base function set up right here. So we don't have to do it with all 3. Now, what we're going to want to do is click on the lock function and assign them to each node on the lock. And this is where it gets a little tricky. Because, so let's say we want this to be, let's go with 7, 4, 3. So you would expect this to be the numbers 7, 4, and 3. However, actually, let's make sure to set this up before we do anything. So on unlock, go to this animation, and let's bring this animation right over here. Here we go. So with this setup, we would see 1, 2, 3, 4. Go to 7, 4, 3. Nothing happened. And this was the thing that got me confused because I had to go back and forth and figure out what it was. So essentially, it's not based on the number in this case. In this case, it would actually be based on the rotation of these blocks. So whatever number we assigned in this node, for this one, it would be the rotation counterclockwise would be the number that it sets on. So since this bottom one is 7, would be, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it would be 8. This is 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. It might be the other way. Like I said, this one is a little bit confusing. So if we go back, it might just be the other way around. So it might actually be clockwise. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. There we go. It's clockwise. So we have to turn it clockwise. So instead of it being 7, 4, 3, the actual numbers would be is 3, 6, 7, which is close to the actual one, except for this bottom right here is a little different. So you have to keep that in mind. If you were to set up something like this, you would have to take the amount of rotations into consideration instead of it just being the number. So that way, when you're setting this up, make sure to turn it clockwise the amount of times you set it up to, and that would give you the number, and that way you would be able to write out a hint. So let's say this would be 3. So the 3, 6, 7, we would go through and write out the numbers on the wall or on a piece of paper to let players know that, those are the actual numbers instead of just 7, 4, 3. So that was a bit tricky to understand. Took me some tries. But similarly, we can also do this with button functions as well. So let's set up another lock function. And let's set up some shapes. In this case, let's do some capsules. We scale this down. Let's set up let's do a little setup here. We'll be a little fancy. So set up this capsule. have it be a button function where we set up the waypoint. And if we want to do this similarly to what we did with the animation, just click this edit waypoint and it would go down. Or let's bring it down, or wherever we please. We can like bring it wherever and do that. So essentially what happens is when this is clicked, it'll play this animation, and then we can have it hooked up to whatever we want. So once again, let's do one. For this case, let's do 5 buttons. 5 buttons will unlock this one. So with that, let's Control D most of these. Yeah. Nothing too perfect, just have something to set up. Control D. So now that this is set up, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to hook each individual one up to the lock how we've been doing this the entire time. So let's set up this one, B1. This would be 2. This would be 3. 4. And 5. There we go. So we have each one hooked up to a node in this one. And similarly to how all of this is, we're going to have this hooked up to our little test block right here. These little blocks are how I like to test out if my if the lock is working before I actually set it up to the component that I want, like a drawer or something. This is how I like to just to test it out. So anyway, there's one thing I forgot to do, and that's set this to static and is an obstacle. That way it's not going to move, and it actually acts as a table. So when the player bumps into it, it has a collider, as you can see right here. So anyways, what we can do, press each 1, 2, 4, 5, and it sets all that up. However, what this does is it leaves room for, like, we can still press each one of these and it will still unlock the function, or still activate the lock, even if you press another one down in sequence. So let's go back. So keep in mind, or actually might as well just reset it altogether. There we go. So keep in mind, if you're going to have to set this up a bit differently to where, like, if you go through and press all this, you can then press that down, or if you press one that's out of sequence and then go through and press the other buttons, it will still activate the lock. So you might have to go through a different way of setting this up. One way that you could do is you could just have this be to where on press it would if you hook it up to this red button right here with the R symbol, or the R, what this does is it resets the code. So if we click that and have that true for all of them, let's go through and press all. It's going to be a bit of a process, but what each one does is it's going to reset the sequence that you have. So if a player presses the wrong one, they're basically going to have to do it all over again. However, this could also cause some issues, as it's not fully, it doesn't function to where each one has to be like pressed down, and if you press one you then have to reset it. But it's essentially what happens once I demonstrate this. So let's say we go through, we press these two, and we press this one. Then we go through and press the other ones. This one that we pressed has reset it. However, since we went through and pressed these other ones already, all we could do I guess I was wrong. One experience that I had previously was that it went through. So essentially, what the players, or it still leaves it to, or actually, this is what I was trying to say. It still leaves it to where this can be left down. It can be left pressed. These ones, like now that we've reset the password and pressed all, or had all these reset and then pressed them again, we can still leave this one alone. So you might want to set something up to where if you press something out of sequence, you can then activate it activates something that would require all of them to be lifted up. But essentially, that's what the reset function does right here. So if you go back on press, that's what this does. It resets this entire lock. So you can have something similar to that in your own level. On the opposite side, what we can see is that we have this green button with the U on it. What that does is it automatically bypasses the lock. So let's say we have another table. Shorten this one down. And we bring out another lock or another button. And instead of reset, we have this go to U. And what this function does, as I've stated before, is it bypasses everything. So we could either go through and do this function right here, or we could just press this, and it'll automatically unlock the lock. So that's a neat little feature that we could do. Like, let's say we want something to just automatically do it. Like, the players go through and they have to set up or create like a lock system. However, that lock system can easily be destroyed or whatever if the players don't do it in a certain amount of time, or if they do it wrong and like the buttons are sticky or the slots are locked in place. There could be another feature to where it automatically just bypasses that lock and still gets the same result. But as of right now, that is all, or a good chunk of features that you could do with these locks, all that. And these are just some puzzles that you can set up. I still have some stuff that I'm working with, but if there's anything that anyone will want to know about, or if there's a different way of doing these, please let me know in the comments, and I will go through and I'll make an updated video and include even more than what I have in this video. Until next time, thank you for watching.